Most of my projects start as inspiration from either nature or the fabric I see, and Cotton+Steel has this incredible new canvas texture out there, and boy, you add that to a brass zipper and you've got an awesome zippered box bag. I've got a great tutorial. Let's get started. Yeah, as I travel so much, I have to have something great to keep all my goodies in all my suitcases and whatnot. And these box bags, I know there's a bazillion tutorials out there. They're really fun and easy to do. I'm gonna do one today with a liner and obviously the big brass zipper and the zipper pulls. But I also love this heavier, it's not quite upholstery weight, but it's much heavier than a quilting cotton. It's a nice canvas, and then this has this beautiful gold metallic print on top of the Peacock. And so we're gonna go ahead and use this, and also a standard canvas. This is the one from Kaufman. We're gonna use this as our liner. I'm gonna need 4 pieces that are cut 8 inches by 10 inches, but the 10-inch is our starting point. So if you would like to try to center, you know, a peacock or anything within your print, this is your 10-inch side, this is your 8-inch side, just while you're looking at your ruler and whatnot. So we're gonna get 2 made from your outer bag, 2 from your liner. And then I also am gonna stabilize these, but I'm stabilizing them differently so they have some nice, structure and loft, but they're not too heavy to sew with. So what I've done here is I've taken the fusible fleece and I've already bonded layers to the back end of the outer fabric. And then I'm using a heavier weight fusible interfacing. So there's some bumps on this side of that. And that is going to be ironed or pressed to the inside or the wrong side of the liner fabric. All 4 pieces I'm going to use, I've taken a ruler already, and I've marked in a 1/2 inch from both sides, and those are going to be where I stop sewing when I'm putting in the brass zipper to begin with. I want to be able to have enough room to work around that zipper because it is a serious metal heavy-duty zipper, and I want you to be careful when you're sewing around it because it could technically break a needle, and I don't want you to end up with something in your eye or whatnot. We're going to do this 2 sides, so we're going to start with our liner fabric, right sides up, and again, already pre-fused. But you know what? I always get so excited about the fabrics and rolling through. It'll actually be easier if we make our pull tabs first. So from this exact same liner fabric, I needed you to make 1 more cut that was 8 inches by 2.5 inches. And then what I did for that is I just went ahead and I have already stitched it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. Then I cut those into 4-inch sections so it's easier to turn right sides out. Once they were right sides out, I flipped them and pressed them to hide the seam behind like that. And then I've gone ahead and I've top stitched with a 1/4 inch on both sides. And to make them easier to handle, I want to go ahead and just do a little stay stitching. So over at the machine right now, I am set up for a 1/4 inch. I'm using cotton threads because I wanted the contrast, but you certainly might want to consider using polyesters for the strength. And I'm just going to do a little narrow stitching in there just to keep those 2 edges together while I'm working with it when I'm getting it in the seam allowance because I'll be handling it near the zipper. So I just don't want to have to monkey around too much with any of that stuff. So those are both made. I need 2 of them. And now we're ready to completely construct our bag. So back we come with our 10 by 8 rectangles already fused with the interfacing. And this is the top side because I have the markers there for my zipper. The zipper itself is going to go now right sides up. So let's get rid of our packaging. And I'm going to go ahead and set this in where it's going to end up. So liner, right side up zipper, and now wrong sides down am I going to go ahead and put my print fabric. I'm going to line up my rectangles all the way around. You might want to put a straight pin in here to hold it. And we're going to sew only from that 1/2 inch mark down to the next 1/2 inch mark. Now we're doing this also with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. And then I'm going to do it to the other side while we're at it. Same exact setup. And I also want to point out right now that big zipper head is off of the zipper because the zipper I've used is an actual, has stoppers on the end. This was not zipper by the yard. So I can safely put it up there, and I've cheated the zipper a good inch past. So that later on we're going to slide that zipper head back in there and cut those. But right now we don't need to worry about that. I want to go back to my liner fabrics. I want to make sure my markings are at the top side. So I'm going to set that there just like I did before, right side up. Zipper, right side together, but now I'm also aligning these rectangles. So both of those sides there, I really want to make sure those are lined up nice because that's going to keep it all square. Come back here, make sure that's where it's supposed to be. Like this, like this. And now I'm going to bring my last liner fabric, or excuse me, my last outer fabric in. It will also go right sides together, but print side up. Zipper's at the top of the bag usually. Keeps your stuff from falling out. Think about that for a second. And here we go. Now I'm going to do that same half-inch mark to half-inch mark sewing. Make sure your zipper doesn't get away from you under there. Lots of layers. And again, stop at that half-inch mark, lock that stitching in, and we're going to go ahead and cut. Now, I would like to do some top stitching, so I'm going to get the good old seam allowance out of the way, or the edge guide there, and then later on we're going to come back and do everything else with 3/8 seam allowance. So right now, I want to come in and I want to go ahead and top stitch my layers, mostly for just the aesthetics of it, make it look nice and pretty. So I'm going to fold this back over here. I'm going to bring this down with these layers, but I'm aligning my outside edges of my canvases. And now I'm going to put the edge of the foot on that seam down below. And top stitching near zippers is great. It actually keeps the meat of the fabric back from the head a ways and keeps you from having a problem zipping or unzipping later, especially if you're using the finer zippers. These brass zippers are pretty unstoppable, as a matter of fact. I love these things. Okay, and I top stitched all the way now out through the edge. I hope that wasn't a disaster instead of stopping half of an inch back. I don't actually remember, so this will be fun. Now, just in case it is, because I know that's going to be in that seam allowance, let's start this one at that half-inch mark. I can always pull a few stitches out, no big deal. The reason, again, that half-inch was stopping and starting is we've got some corners to put together down there. We're also going to have the pull tabs in there. So we were leaving ourselves some space. I think I just sealed it on one side. Silly me. Okay, so let's stop on this side, that half-inch back too. Lock it down. Okay, that's going to look terrific there. We'll see if I have to undo those. Now, we're going to go ahead and start constructing out the bag itself. And for that, what I want to do is I want to make sure that my liner or my outer edges are stitched all the way across. And now we're going to go to 3/8 seam allowance. So let's set our edge guide appropriately. And I don't have a 3/8 mark, but I'm just going to go between quarter and half on there. And then I'm going to sew all the way across the bottom of the two outer fabric pieces. Now, as we go ahead though to seal the liner pieces, in order to have a completely finished edge, we're going to leave ourselves an escape route at the bottom here so we can turn everything right sides back out after all of the construction. So what we're going to do for our liner bottom seam is we're going to simply sew a few inches across. So lock that stitching in. Let's go about 3 or 4 inches. This is a 10-inch seam. Let's leave ourselves about 4 or 5 inches and then give ourselves another 2 or 3 inches. So as a reminder, we need to be able to leave that big wide opening in there so that we can go ahead and turn everything right sides out. Now we're going to start building the side walls, and to build the side walls, what I need to do now is I need to sew together the liner edges over the zipper. And remember when I was getting excited about sewing those top stitching? Well, I am going to need to get my seam ripper out, because the reason we had the 1/2 inch marks, let me see if I can get this to at least lay flat so you can see. is when we're sewing across here, I want to be able to stitch this line, but not be sewing through the other fabrics. So that's why I need to be able to fold them back with that 1/2 inch mark. So yes, let's quickly go ahead and go back to that top stitching we had. And I'm just going to pop 4 or 5 stitches out to make it so that I can fold back that fabric. And get around the zipper like that. Okay, so I did it on that side, and so it'll also be necessary down here. And that doesn't take too long at all to fix. There. Now I should be able to get around what I need to. Make sure that's clean too. Great. Now we can work in those corners without it being so bulky. So let's start with our liner. It's the lighter, easier fabric to handle. And what I'm going to really do is I'm going to sew it on from the top. So I'm going to squish these down, and I'm lining up that seam we just created on the bottom with my zipper itself. That keeps it nice and straight and square. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here with this corner pinched. I'm coming to the machine, and as a reminder, 3/8 seam allowance. And right now I'm looking at it and I can see my zipper head up here. And I'm about to sew over my zipper. So I need to make sure my zipper head at this moment is down inside my bag. So let's just make sure you understand what I was saying. Zipper was out here. I'm going to sew over the zipper. I would have never been able to get that zipper head back in there. So let's go ahead and unzip it about halfway. But don't let your zipper go way too far apart because that could mess up your seams. Okay, so we're just going to hold it. Those teeth are like nice and together like that. And here we go. We're at the machine. We've got that 3/8 seam allowance. Lock in this stitch. Get everything organized. Pull that 1/2 inch of the other fabric back and out of the way. And I want you to really slow down here. You're getting near that brass zipper. And if at all possible, what I'd love for you to be able to do is to go over the zipper, stop right at the teeth, back up, lift your needle, move over the other edge of the zipper. In other words, don't try to run the needle through the zipper if possible. We're going to do that later. We don't need to do it over and over again. Back up again. So be careful though, the head of your zipper could technically come off. You might want to put a safety pin down in there. But I've secured that side. And while I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and roll the other side and do the exact same thing. So that's easy enough because we had those markings to pull that fabric back out of the way. We've sealed the bottom or the liners. Now we need to do the top, but at this point we want to go ahead and put our pull tabs in also. The pull tabs are facing out of the bag, so right now they need to go in towards and lay on the zipper. And we're going to do the same style sewing, but now we're doing it for that outer liner. And I'm just going to manage one side at a time. Bring that over close so I can do it while I'm seated. And while I'm pulling back on this fabric, I'm making sure that my zipper pull, and I'm sliding that little stitched edge so I can see it, which means that my basting stitches on the zipper pull are not going to show up later on. And I'm just coming through here. It's going to get a little heavy. Don't push or pull, just let the machine do the work. Here we're coming into that zipper area again, so let's back up. Okay, you heard it hit, but I didn't keep driving it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go over that zipper. I'm going to lay it down, and I'm actually feeling to see if there was a snag, because if I've already damaged the needle, I need to change it. Feels like it's doing okay. Gotten a little louder. There's probably a little nick on the bottom of that needle, but we can still go ahead and sew out the bag. Yes, because my stitching is looking fine. So if you ever hit a zipper or a pin or anything, that's what you do. You just evaluate, okay, am I in trouble there or not? Now, for the other side, I'm gonna go ahead and get that pull tab located. I'm gonna go back down right here, and we're just gonna do that same exact kind of sewing all over again. And get myself organized before I get on the machine. Oop, lost my little pull tab. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay, so remember that lines up, insides out like that. Folding that seam over nice. It just looks like a lot of pieces. Pulling back on the liner fabric there, coming over the zipper. Again, trying to avoid striking it. Right through there again. Let's back up. Okay, so that is the most, I want to say stressful, I shouldn't use that word, but that's the hardest part of the sewing because there's so many layers. You're nervous about that zipper. I'm really proud of you. You took it good and slow. Perfect, well done. So we're out of here now, and now we get to box out our corners, which is really fun. Now, this is going to be a small area to work in. I have other videos and other bags I've done bigger box corners. So if you're not real comfortable with box corners, you might want to check those out. But I'm going to pull on this seam. Now we're going to do this for all 8 corners. So what I'm going to have to do is try to line up this seam here with this bottom crease there and stitch it while all of this other stuff is kind of in my way, and I want it to be kind of 45-degree angle. So I just started spending a lot of time massaging the fabrics a little bit. And then what I've learned is I use the corner of my table. So you might have to come over this way to see it. But I kind of have been starting to use the corner of my table to get the rest of the bulk out of the way. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a 1.5-inch box corner, which means I need to measure up, there it is, 1.5 inches from the tip. So 1.5 inches up this way. And I was really kind of struggling on the corner and the table and all that to get it to handle, because then as I got to the machine, but I thought, wait, what if I marked 1.5 inches on the machine? Wouldn't that be easier? Because we're going to do all 8 corners, right? So what I can do is I can now go ahead and move an edge guide over so that I am 1.5 inches from the needle to my edge guide. And even if I'm not exact, they're all the same, right? And if you want your bag a little taller, you would make a smaller box. So now all I have to do is pinch these layers together, come in here like yay, make sure that the fabric is flat and up against the edge guide here. Now I'm going to lower my presser foot, back stitch right over that corner, back stitch, and while it's there, I just flip it over to the other side. Once the first corner goes in, the second corner is much easier. So I just kind of, again, like I did the first side, kind of massaging it for a minute or two. Then I'm going to come back in. And it's mostly the rest of the bag that is fighting with me a little bit. I'm going to line this up, and you know what? I saw my needle just came unthreaded. So let me go ahead, rethread, do all the rest of all 8 corners of this, and I'll show you how to turn that last seam. I'll be right back. Well, you can see all 8 corners have been boxed, and I'm actually already starting to trim, and I'm just scissor trimming about 1/4 inch past the seam I made, and I'm simply scissor trimming it because it's easier than trying to get everything flat on the table to safely use the rotary cutter and the rotary ruler, basically, is what I'm trying to say, while cutting and not cutting my fingers. Okay, so we now have all the 8 corners off. We're going to set those down. Now, for me, one of my interests is to really secure that zipper. So at this moment right here, I'm going to come back over here and just past where all that fabric is, I really now want to go ahead and stitch over the zipper a few times. Now, earlier you saw me hit my zipper with the needle, and now we're going to go back and forth over it and try to get right between the teeth. Reverse. I'm just really trying to secure this. Okay, well, that's the end of that needle anyways, because we knew that was going to happen. That's why I do that at the very end. Okay, so I'm back with a fresh needle because I really want you to be able to see how this works. And I don't think I mentioned earlier, but this whole project I've been using the jeans denim needles, and to try to make sure that everything's nice and strong and secure. And you notice I'm sitting a little bit back because at any moment this needle could break, but I'm just gonna try to get a couple stitches across here just to secure it. Like yay, and I'm actually trying to stitch it into that fabric as well, just to prevent that little opening in the inside of our bag. Great. Okay, well, we broke a little thread, but I didn't break the needle that time, so we're great. We're ready to get out of here. Now, what we're gonna do, oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, I've already done the other side in the middle of the needle swap. We need to trim the zippers, and like with the needles, it can damage our scissors too. So what I wanna do is I wanna come down here a little long, and I'm gonna cut, and I'm going to move my scissor all the way to the back of the blade, and I tried to cut right through the teeth, but the reason I go to the back of the blade is if I ever were to get a nick, do the same thing if you're ever cutting wire like French ribbon. That way, if I ever get a nick, it's way at the back of the blade, not out here where you can really feel it on your wonderful scissors. And remember, we put the zipper head where it belongs, so now I can come over here and cut this side. But this is that tail end. And if you have craft scissors, I wouldn't be hurt if you did this with your craft scissor instead. Cut the fabric, and let's see if I can twist it off there. So what I've done is I've broken the zipper so that now I can get in there between those teeth, because I do not want to take my wonderful gingers and cut through those teeth on there, even at the backside. So I've taken off both ends of the zipper, so our box bag is all but finished. We're gonna now go ahead and start to turn it right sides out through the opening in the bottom of the bag we left. Come on now. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna work the rest of the bag out the zipper opening. So coming on, like this here. Now, at this moment, the rest of the bag's coming out that hole, but we still need to finish this little edge, which is our top or our opening, and we can top stitch this. Now, you can turn it under and hand sew it if you must. I'm gonna come right back over here and rethread my needle because I only broke the thread, not the needle on that last pass real quick. And we're just gonna machine stitch it closed. If you want to switch to the blue thread so it matches, I would probably recommend it. But for me, I'm just going to use the gold right now so we can get the job done. And I'm just pinching those layers nice, but I'm going to come up this seam as far as I can to make it look like it was always intentional. And for this top stitching, boy, I'm going to try to get right on the very edge of that folded two layers there. So I'm going to pull my hand in your way for just a second. And then I'm going to set that down, and I'm just right on the edge. There it is, right where I wanted to be. Lock that in. Make sure all my edges are aligned just like I really want them. And now we're ready to go ahead and finish off the bag, just like this. Finish it, coming around. And we're gonna back stitch to secure it like this. And so the bottom edge has been now complete. We have a completely sealed, no raw edges bag. Here's my little zipper opening in there. I can pull it back, and now I pop out the rest of it for the ta-da moments, right? Here's my zipper pulls and my super cool boxed corners and my edges. And because my first bag I was trying to save so I could get my awesome peacock centered on there, out there. You saw how I did that by lining up that 8x10 rectangle to begin with. So I just spend a moment and play with my corners to get them set up like that, and then you can hang onto your zipper tabs. And doesn't that look amazing with that cool brass zipper in there and our super awesome box bag using that great canvas from Cotton+Steel. Radical project, a couple of tricky steps in there, so just remember, take it slow, be careful. I like having glasses, it's a safety feature. And like all of these wonderful projects we keep doing out here, we love the fact you're following along. Subscribe if you already haven't, and we'll see you next time right here at Man Sewing. Thanks for being a Man Sewing fan. It's great to have you out there encouraging me to create fantastic new content. If you've missed any of the videos, we've got links for you here and here. And while you're checking those out, make sure you're subscribed. We don't want you to miss any of the action.